This is part two of my explanation of one-point perspective. I'm going to focus on helping you understand how to construct a drawing of a room in one-point perspective. We dealt with boxes in the other video, and now we're going to extrapolate that to how you would construct a room in one-point perspective. So in the last video I explained that one side of your object is always going to be front-facing when you're drawing things in one-point perspective. The same thing is true of drawing a room in one-point perspective. One side of your furniture, of your tables, of your objects in the room will be front-facing, and one of the walls in the room will be front-facing. So to draw a room in one-point perspective, you need to face one wall. You need to be sitting such that one wall is front-facing. So I would then start out by drawing that front-facing wall. And that's going to be the back wall in the room that is facing you directly. And you should be sitting in the room such that you are facing that wall. Now the next comes the question of where do you establish the location of your horizon line and your vanishing point? Well, this has to do with where you yourself are positioned in the room. So imagine taking a laser pointer and shining it directly from your eye onto the back wall. And wherever the laser pointer will fall on the back wall, that's where your vanishing point will be. So let's say I'm sitting in the lower right corner of the room. My vanishing point would then be in the lower right corner of this back wall. If I was standing on the ladder in the middle of the room by the ceiling, near the ceiling, then my vanishing point would be up here. So the location of your vanishing point has to do with your location in the room. So I'm going to pretend that I am seated in the lower left, so not too low to the ground but not too high up, and a little bit over to the left-hand side of the room. Your horizon line always goes through your vanishing point in one-point perspective. So this will be the location of your horizon line. Locating your horizon line when you're drawing a room in perspective helps you to understand what falls above that horizon line and what falls below that horizon line, and whether you should see the top sides or the undersides of objects above it. The third step then would be to establish the structure of the walls and the ceilings. That's very important. You need to know where your walls and ceilings are before you can start adding objects to the room. So you think about the top corner where the ceiling meets the wall, and the bottom corner where the wall meets the floor. And you realize that a room is basically a box. And those edges of the room, where the floor meets the ceiling, where the floor meets the wall and where the wall meets the ceiling, those edges are parallel to each other and they are moving away from you. So, edges again that are parallel to you and moving away from you, the golden rule of perspective tells us that those edges that are parallel and moving away from you will go to the same vanishing point. So you basically just grab your ruler and construct lines that go through the corners of the room outwards to establish the wall, the ceiling, and the floor. So if I darken the lines that are not my guidelines, but rather darken the lines of the room construction, then you can see how it's starting to come together. I have my floor established here. I have the right-hand wall over here. I have the ceiling above and the wall on the left-hand side. Now, probably one of the easiest elements to add to a room are to add frames, pictures, things hanging on the wall, because we know that the top edges of something hanging on the wall and the bottom edge of something hanging on the wall is going to be, those edges are going to be parallel and in line with the edges of the wall itself, because most pictures hang straight on a wall. And so again, it's a matter of thinking about the parallel edges that are moving away from you, going to the vanishing point, and then the horizontal edges remain horizontal and the vertical edges remain vertical. So these verticals are in line with the verticals in the wall, and so they stay vertical and do not go to a vanishing point. And then the top sides and the bottom sides of your picture are in perspective because those edges are moving away from us. And we can add extra details by adding the inner frame and things like this. Now, to add furniture to the room, you first need to establish where the furniture is sitting on the floor. This is very important because you don't want objects to be sitting behind the wall. You need them to be sitting on the floor. So, if I was going to draw a chair up against this left-hand wall, I would think about what the footprint of that chair, what the shape of the footprint of that chair might be. And it's going to be a box, right? Most chairs have a footprint that's kind of like a box. So you can just easily think about how the base of the chair leaves a footprint on the floor that's kind of a box shape. And then once you've put that in perspective on the floor, so it's resting on the floor up against the wall, the next thing I would do is think about the side that is front facing. Again, remember that always one side of the object is front facing. So break down the side of that object in terms of simple shapes, and you can think about most chairs as breaking down into rectangles. So you have the back of the chair is a rectangle like this, and you have the seat of the chair is also a rectangle. And you have the leg of the chair as a rectangle. So now we can think about the edges that move away from us. These edges don't move away from us, but the sides of the chair do move away from us, and so they will go to the vanishing point like this. Okay? And then you just cut off the back edge. Again, remember thinking about how deep the chair is going to be and thinking about how the seat of the chair is horizontal and the back of the chair is vertical. And so it's a matter of constructing the object in space like this. So now what you can do, once you have the basic construction made, then you can refine this. And you can look at the shape of the chair, and maybe you'll notice that the back of the chair, maybe the chair is a little bit more rounded. You can add details such as buttons or fabric or whatever kinds of elements might be added to this chair to make it more realistic once you get the basic shape, the basic structure of it in perspective. Let me draw another object in perspective. This time I'm going to draw a table, again keeping in mind that one side of the table is going to be front facing. So break down the basic shapes of what that table is looking like, and it's got table legs, and so I can pull the edges back into perspective like this. And establish the edges that move away from us into perspective. It's simply a matter of breaking down objects into simple boxes or rectangular prisms, drawing those boxes in perspective, and then adding whatever details are needed to construct the object as you see it in reality.